Okay, you'll have to forgive me. I'm here on a bad hair day. But had a thought. I had a thought last night. I was thinking about wholeness. So, why do we journey? I'm still into my why do we journey little blogs, and we journey fundamentally to access our wholeness. There's different ways of understanding the deep imagination, and I'm not sure how much understanding we actually need, but as I've said before, you could see it as the collective unconscious or the unconscious, you can see it as all these things, but what I fundamentally know about the imageries, the journeys we do into the deep imagination, is that they are a way of embracing our wholeness and of healing. And those two things are fundamentally important. We go into this work with the intention of healing, and we understand that our healing process is fundamentally achieved by embracing our wholeness. It means that we're not heading just for the light and we're not wallowing in the dark, but we're giving ourselves that expanse of who we are. It means in a journey we need to be courageous. And you, as someone in a training, need to be particularly courageous because you're saying, hey, I'm giving myself these 3 years to grow as deeply and strongly human as I can be, to find my roots, but not to be stuck just below, but also in here, as up as far as we go and as broad as I am. And why would you do that? Well, apart from the fact I think it's all our lives' journeys. We are on a journey to embrace our wholeness. Some people would, maybe call it enlightenment, that we're aiming for our enlightenment, and maybe we are, but I prefer to see it as aiming for our wholeness and gathering our wholeness. And it's not a task that ever comes to an end. Now, I hope you don't sit there and go, oh, no, Mary, please let it be something that I get an end of. No, I'm sorry. It's a great adventure of our lives. We are always and ever in our lives embracing our wholeness and growing towards our wholeness. It means that whatever's happening is part of who we are and that we have a doorway into it. Our imagery knows the best path. Of that I'm certain. It is the kindest, it is the gentlest, and the most direct way of embracing wholeness. Our guides bring us along the path we need to follow so that we can become as whole as we possibly can be in our lives. It's also a basic life skill, a basic way of integrating who we are in our deepest humanity. We need whole people. That's all I know. This world needs us to be as whole as we possibly can be. So we're not snagged. We're not snagged by the unhealed parts of ourselves. We're aiming for our healing, and our healing means the deep integration of all the aspects of who we are. Which is why sometimes when you start working with the deep imagery, you're brought back to childhood injuries. You're brought back to things that have happened in the past. Pieces of yourself that, especially when we're children, some of the things that happen to us are just too big for us to deal with, and so we split them off. We can't integrate them as children, but as adults we can. And imagery, the deep imagination, it has no boundaries in space and time. It allows us to go back to those places. It allows us to meet those inner children who have been neglected or who've had to carry a load that they no longer need to do so. That is the healing that can take place. And so when you begin, yes, you may have intense journeys. And I hope you do, because that's the power of the work. But you may have intense journeys that seem totally overwhelming. You might also have journeys that are really gentle and really affirmative and really supportive. Psychologists are saying these days that, one negative experience kind of has 5 times the impact of a positive experience. And we know what this is like. You go to bed at night and all you can think about is the one thing that went wrong all day, not the other 99% of your day that was perfectly fine. But anyway, psychologists think it's a survival instinct from when we were hunter-gatherers or something, where you had to pay attention to danger. But the end result is that we can get very snagged in those things that were dangerous to us, either emotionally dangerous, physically dangerous, whatever the danger was in our lives, especially when we were younger. And they can still snag us, they can still hold us. So, what we're trying to do as we journey is firstly really intend we are aiming for our wholeness, which means a constant gathering of the things we've pushed away. Strangely enough, some of those things are the positive things about ourselves. I mean, this is part of our injury at times, is that it's not just that we're pushing away the negative, we're also pushing away our strengths and our wholenesses, the best parts of ourselves, because there was no room for them, perhaps, as a child, or as you grew up, or you were brought up to always say, hey, I must be modest and humble and never acknowledge who I am. Modesty and humbleness is always good, but when it's used to put you down, it's not so good. That's actually not modesty and humbleness at all. So often what we're trying to recover are very positive aspects of ourselves, our power. And if you like, this is fundamentally what we're doing, is looking for our power. And if we are splitting up who we are into little segments, and that we're not having access to those segments, then we are totally narrowing ourselves into someone we're not. So when you journey, be aware of this. Wonder about wholeness. What is my wholeness? What are the parts of me that I've pushed away because they're either too big, too good, too huge, or maybe they're traumas, they're things that have happened. And this 3 years you have for this work, seek your wholeness without apology. Seek your healing without apology. Seek your deep integration without apology. This is what this work can offer you. In the residential trainings, you are kind of plunged into it. You almost have no choice because of group dynamics and everything else. And you're taking, anything between 3 to 6 days at a time together. And it does have an energy like that. In this non-residential training, it's being asked of you in your everyday life. And in some ways, there's a great power in that. You're learning how to work with a deep imagination as you live your life. It isn't something you pull out and only access when you're in retreat. It is something you're doing every day. That the one thing I do know about journeying, is it brings you where you need to go. I don't necessarily say, wow, everyone needs to be plunged into trauma. No, because here we are. You said, I'm going to give myself these 3 years, and I'm going to probably work on this every week. Your whole psyche knows this. Your whole self knows this. It will guide you on that unique path that's yours over these 3 years, within that ball of time and that setup. There will be deep, painful journeys. There will be recoveries of trauma. There will be pieces of yourself that you've maybe hated that you suddenly have to have a relationship with. And this is fundamentally what the work is. Let's have a relationship with all the parts of myself. It means there will be parts of you you love that you never knew was really core to you. There will be parts of yourself you will give back because they weren't really part of yourself. Something you thought that was yours, that was really your mother's. Something you thought that was yours, that was really your father's. You will be giving those back. You will not be carrying the loads that are not yours. So this 3 years gives you the chance as well. When you journey, you discover what's yours and what's not yours. But fundamentally, have the attitude that this is for my healing. And my healing is really something to do with my wholeness. And that's what guides it. I'm aiming for my wholeness. I'm aiming to be the most whole person I can possibly be. You're not aiming to just be all light, but to have access to all of that. And this is why the training puts us through all these different types of journeys. We work with polarities, we work with our chakra animals, the centers of aliveness, we work with the ways of knowing, we work with our senses, we work with relationship work. This is a very quick view of the training of all those things. The purpose is fundamentally to expose you to a lot of situations and a lot of journeys with the intent that you do your own work. Because when you guide someone else, the thing you will draw on is your own wholeness, your own experience in the work. If you can grow to trust your inner guides, if you trust that firstly they are about your healing, they are going to move constantly and consistently towards your healing, they are about helping you to see yourself as whole and complete at all times, of really discovering the things that can be healed so that you feel that wholeness within you. If you can know that you can trust them fundamentally, that if the path even seems difficult, wow, I am scared in this journey, I'm angry in this journey. If those emotions are there, or those things are there that seem to you as if they may be very difficult, if you've gone through them yourself, you know then when you guide someone else, you can base it in the trust you have that what's happening is for their healing. It's not to annoy them. It's not to upset them. It's not to leave them impaired in their life. It's not to awaken something in the past that's unresolved and leave it unresolved. It's not for any of those reasons. But you can only know this by having entered those places in yourself. Having known yourself, these are difficulties. This is where I find myself trapped or angry or hurt, or I don't know what to do here. And yet your inner guides have known what to do. When you start looking back on your journeys and you see, oh, look at that journey I did like 2 years ago. Or me, like, oh, look at that journey I did 30 years ago. If I hadn't done that journey, which seemed light and easy or didn't seem that difficult, if I hadn't done that journey, I couldn't today do this really difficult journey that I am in. I couldn't undertake this process. And that's what you learn. This is a process. And it is a process that is deeply supported by your imagery. It is a process that leads you to becoming as whole as you can be, and it's unending. It's not that I am whole and full stop, I don't have to grow anymore. No, it's really saying I can constantly grow. And growing is not just upwards, it is this wholeness of who we are, that you are deep and tall and strong and broad in yourself. There's nothing that scares you, really, in the sense that there's nothing that you would say, oh, this is not, I can push it away, that it needs to be integrated. There's nothing that's going to say to you, I cannot trust this. But the way you learn that is by following your own process. So that's my thought for today, kind of a mishmash of thoughts about wholeness and healing and integration, and the power of imagery to bring us to those places. You can do this. You can trust your imagery. You can fully know that these inner guides, which are part of you, your own deep wisdom, it knows the path you need to follow. It is aware of the path you need to follow. It knows, if you like, the whole of this jigsaw, of those pieces you need to work on now so that you can build the rest of your life, basically, and build your path. Follow that path. It knows every part of you is available to you. And fundamentally, that's what the relationship is in this work, that we have relationships with all of those things. Some things you might not, they might take you 20, 30 years to integrate. I've had places like that. It's not a miracle pill, but it is saying, wow, I trust this process. I trust the way I'm walking this path. So try it. Try trusting. Try saying, I'm really embracing my wholeness. I trust this path will bring me to my wholeness. I trust that my animal guides, my inner guides, know that path, and I can do this.